been doing sit-ups. I've been doing chin-ups. I've been doing pull-ups. I threw up once, but I'm okay now.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to a Friday TGIF version of the Ysn Power Hour. DJ Yoakley with you. It is the 20th. Yes, the 20th day in May. May flying by, June right around the corner. That means summer baseball. That means street fairs. That means we're one day closer to the greatest fair of all time, the Canfield Fair. And today we're going to talk about all that stuff, plus all kinds of sports, past, present, and future, with one of my favorite people in this entire world, one of the guys that I got into sports casting because of the legendary, my personal favorite, my personal friend and brother, Mr. Mike Ackelson. We'll have him on in just a couple minutes. But first, you know what it's time for? It's time to get this baby kick started with a little On This Day in Sports History. Roll it. All right, so I'm going to be completely honest with you at this point. Not a great one today, but like I told you a couple weeks ago, we're getting into those days of summer where not everything happens. You're down to baseball, softball, the summer sports. So there's not a whole lot going on outside of the NHL, which the guy we're having on today knows a thing or two about. On this day in sports history, 1984, Boston's Roger Clemens beats the Twins 5-4. Why is that important? Well, it was the first ever victory for Roger Clemens in a career that was so just unbelievably, he was almost showered in accolades with all he did. And then obviously the scandal of steroids started, and Roger Clemens still looking for a chance to get in the Hall of Fame, which, fingers crossed on my part at least, he gets in there. One of the greatest pitchers of all time not to be in the Hall of Fame is just about as stupid as the best hitter of all time not getting in the Hall of Fame. With that hot take, we bring in, again, one of the best people in the Valley for sports in the history of this beautiful Valley. Ladies and gentlemen, from his beautiful home and mansion in Butler, Pennsylvania, it is Mike Ackelson. Mikey, what's going on, buddy?
Not much. How are you? Hey, I'm going to add one to this sports day in history because you and I were chatting. Mm-hmm. Do you know back in 2001, you just happened to mention the greatest hitter that's not in the Baseball Hall of Fame?
Peter.
Yeah.
Peter Rose.
Yeah, he should be there, but so should Barry Bonds.
Oh, yeah.
Hit a home run in his fourth consecutive at bat. He's only the 13th player in Major League history to pull that feat off.
Okay, so for my money, Barry Bonds is the greatest baseball player to ever live. That's my money. I'm putting it there. People, and Babe Ruth is there too. Willie Mays they talk about, Hank Aaron they talk about, Pete Rose they talk about, but Barry Bonds is the guy that I can get behind. And even if the steroid stuff, I'm a guy that doesn't care about that. I don't care. I don't think it allows you to hit more home runs. It doesn't do anything for your hand-eye coordination. And it doesn't necessarily, listen, if you take steroids and you don't pump iron, it's not going to do anything for you. It doesn't make your eyes any better. So what's your take on that? Who's the best, well, I know in your opinion, the greatest player of all time is someone we're 21, correct?
Absolutely. But I'm going to tell you right now, Babe Ruth was never walked with the bases loaded like Barry Bonds was. And that's a fact. I mean, multiple times Bonds was walked so he couldn't hit a grand slam or, launch a double or something. Like you said, you can take those, and it's never been a proven fact. He never failed a test, by the way, just so anybody out there, you can argue with us all you want, but I know that because I've read about it.
Yeah.
He got the shaft. He should be a Hall of Famer. No ands, ifs, or buts.
Okay, so let's. What about this, Mike? So people talk about Babe Ruth, okay, and I think the further we get from history, more people say, well, he's just a fat slob that hit home runs. But here's my caveat: Shohei Ohtani right now is arguably the best player in baseball, and he's being compared to Babe Ruth. What am I missing here from this standpoint that Babe Ruth isn't one of the, if not the greatest player of all time, and they're comparing Shohei Ohtani, who is the only guy that's had these stats, and this, between Babe Ruth and Shohei, what am I missing that he's not going to be or could be one of the greatest players in the history of our sport?
You're not missing anything. You're exactly right on it. When you look at things, Babe Ruth pitched and won games. He struck out batters. When he stepped into the batter's box, he was one of the most feared players. And now you got Ohtani for the Angels. That is on my hit list. And that's what I do anymore. When I go to games, I try to find teams where I want to see players. My Pirates, I love them to death. And I do. But it's hard to watch. So I find games where if the right person's coming to town, or I'm in a town where I'm near somebody, we go. My wife and I were in Baltimore 5 years ago, and I kid you not, I looked right at her and I said, we're going to the Orioles game on this Saturday. She goes, well, I said, no, we're going. I said, Machado's there, and by the way, there's a guy named Mike Trout. We're going. And that ended the argument because it chopped another stadium off our list. So if Ohtani gets where I can see him this year, I'm absolutely going.
I mean, how can you not? He's a great show to watch. And maybe if you're lucky enough, is he still pitching every fifth day?
Yeah, they're still bringing him out there pitching. And think about it, reconstructive surgery. And I think he's better now than he was before he had the surgery.
And an MVP caliber season last year. So
it's
going to be interesting. You are, my friend, the Shohei Ohtani of sports broadcasting, because you just do it all. Like, you can pinch hit, we can put you in the lineup, you do anything, and you're always asking for more. Every time I see you, it's, I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to do this. The thing that I love about you, among the many things, Mike, is the fact that when we were, so you worked for 21, obviously, for how many years?
30
years. Okay. I got into the game about 2007, working for 33 and then 33/27. So I tried to get in at 21. There was a time where I tried to get in and be kind of your Padawan and Dana's Padawan. Obviously didn't end up with it, but it's one of those scenarios where we might be better off for it to this day, because it drove me a little bit harder. You and I have talked about that over and over again. We waited and just the opportunity for us to work together. It never came. And then when YSN began, I called you and just it's simple. Hey, how are you doing? Would you be interested? And by the end of that phone call, it was, before I could get the words out, it was yes. Why was that?
It was simple. I believed in what you were doing from the get-go. And right before I'd left the station, you had just started YSN. And it was, you were in what we'd call the hold the baby in the cradle stage, up every 2 hours, worried about it. And I remember I ran into you down in the South Range game, and brand new stadium there. And I looked at you and I said, I'm proud of you. You got guts. You got a lot of guts, because not a lot of people would do what you're doing. And he says, you got big things on the horizon. And we laughed at each other and kind of, and in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, you're thinking, he's nuts. He really thinks this is going to work. And I watched and I followed, and you and I talked and kept talking. And I never left you. I took a hiatus for 2 years. I literally came home. I went to everything my youngest son did. I went to all my wife's band concerts, musical concerts that she performed at her school. And it was cool. And then you made that call and you're like, do you want to? And I'm like, the fire was there. I'm like, I want to come back and do this, because this is growing. This is awesome. And I believed in you. I never doubted for 1 minute after that first conversation, even though we laughed. And in the back of our minds, we thought, you're a little crazy, but you were crazy in a good way.
And we haven't stopped laughing since.
Yeah.
That the first night, and we'll tell some war stories here. The first night for Audible Call, man, Whoo, baby. What a wild night that was. It was raining cats and dogs. It was a Thursday night because it was going to be a 2-night audible call, remember?
Right. It became a 3-night.
Like, you couldn't have picked a worse night, like a worse opening week for us. But by the time we opened on Thursday night, by the time we closed on Saturday, it was night and day. And we had I wouldn't say we had all the kinks behind us, and we overcame the world. But Mike, you came to me at one point on Friday. You put your hand on my shoulder and you said, it's going to be okay. Because we had a website that crashed on Thursday night. We were having all kinds of problems on Friday because of the rain, if I remember correctly.
Oh, yeah, lightning delays, everything.
And you came over and you said, it's going to be okay. It can only get better from here. And it did. And now Audible Call is one of the most before its time things that has ever occurred. We're the only place in the world outside of the professional sports to do what we do. And you're really the lead dog behind it. And people don't realize that I give you complete creative control as to what you do. There's no scripts. There's no anything. The only thing we got to make sure we do is pay the bills, and you do it better than anybody in the business, my friend. Why is Audible Call and something like that so important to you? And to have that kind of reconnection to what you did for 30 years, you stepped away and now you're back. And to me, and I mean this with all due respect, I think you're more active and more youthful than you've ever been.
Well, here's the big thing, and why it works is because we fly by the seat of our pants from 6:50 even through like the Joe Dickey scoreboard show. And it is, we just roll with the punches, and this isn't working. Okay, well, let's go here. And your poor brother-in-law, Brian, I mean, I watch him before I come in, and I'm amazed that like he hasn't literally like stabbed somebody, because that man, what he does to make sure that everything gets on, every game is on every Friday, is amazing. And we could have a technical difficulty in where we're going to do Audible Call, and he leaves what he's doing and tells them, don't move. I'll be right back. Comes in, takes one flip of a switch. He gets Anthony and I, or you and I, right where we need to go. And it's awesome. And I think the thing that I love about YSN, it's just not one person.
No. You're
the driving force. Steve Leslie is awesome to work with also. Mm-hmm. Brian is awesome to work with, but it's one big team effort, and it's a family type thing.
You're a hockey guy, right? You're one of the biggest hockey guys I know and racing guys I know, but it's one of those situations where, yes, Sidney Crosby is the best in the world, but it takes every player on that roster to make him who he is. You talk about it. You're the driver, right? You're in the driver's seat on every Friday night, Saturday night, but it's your pit crew that's out there telling you what to do and making sure that you got wheels and tires on the car that makes that baby roll. The chaos that you speak of, you are almost like and it's funny because Beth does those orchestras and those band concerts at school, because you are, my friend, are the maestro, because it's almost like it's a symphony that you're doing this, and the guys are listening to you. Obviously you bring a lot of credibility, and that's one of the things that I know and love. But Mike, while what you did was very scripted for 30 years, the thing that you were best at, and I think still better than anybody in the area, is the way you ad-lib and the way that you can drop dad jokes and things like that. So where did you learn that? Is that a acquired taste? Is that an acquired kind of skill, or have you had that the whole time?
I've always been a clown. Let's just put it that way. I had a teacher in high school tell me I was never going to amount to anything. And I told her, I says, I'm going to live every one of my dreams, with the exception of auto racing, because my mom wouldn't let me do it. And if my mom had let me do it, I would have raced cars. But she told me I was just a clown. I never took anything serious. And I said, the funny thing is, that's how I deal with it. I was the worst test taker in the world. If I studied all night, I would bomb a test because the pressure was there. If I leisurely went over my notes, and this is going to be weird, I related everything to sports. Mm-hmm. If it was a math problem and the answer was 24, it was Willie Mays. If it was 58, it was Jack Lambert. Yeah. And it's weird. Like, people look at you like, how can you, but I could just, it's how I did it. And there's certain things, like, I liked American history. I never took a note, but I paid attention. It might not look like I was paying attention, but I was. I had one history teacher. He looked at my dad. He goes, I don't know how he passes. He has to be cheating. And my dad says, what do you mean? And he says, well, he doesn't take any notes. And my dad says, well, he read the book. He read the book the first night he came home. And then he just follows through, and he says, when you think he doesn't take notes and stuff, he is. He takes them in his head. He goes, that's the only way he can store it. And he says, give him a verbal test and he'll ace it. Give him a written test and he'll fail it.
That's incredible.
Guy made me take a verbal test. 100%.
Unreal. Yeah. Unreal. That's amazing. Let's talk about sports. I mean, you obviously have a passion for sports, as we're getting a lot of comments here, Mike. Everybody loves you, and that's no surprise. When you got in, when you first started at FMJ, year 1 to year 30, what was the biggest difference in the industry, in how you interviewed student athletes? What was the biggest thing that you saw and you went, wow, this has come so far in progression from when I first started?
The weird thing was, like, we were on 3/4-inch tapes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you think about the cameras the guys haul around now. You can go to Best Buy and buy cameras, and the quality is just as good. But they had these massive 50-pound cameras. Everybody was wearing, most camera guys by the end of 5 years are like this, their shoulder can't hold up. Yeah. And like, I watched that, and then I remember one day Jack Gerdick walked in and he goes, someday this is all going to be computerized. And I'm looking at him like going, no way. And that was it, man. Like, it came to that. And then, like, even I said to you last year when I came to you with the idea for the playoffs, let's do a sideline guide of the games.
Brilliant.
I did that all off my cell phone. Like, I would have never, ever, if somebody had told me back in 1985 when I was at Clarion University, there was no cell phones back then, but I would be reporting and doing live cut-ins to a state championship game on my cell phone, I'd have looked at them and said, what kind of crack are you smoking? Because
what's a cell phone, by the way?
Yeah. Where is that? And what's this internet thing you talk of? And it's funny, like, I look at my youngest son now, he only knows of the internet.
That's it.
And I go back, and I was laughing. I had lunch today with one of my friends I went to high school with. We were the last class to get out of Slippery Rock High School, 1983. We were not allowed to use the computer lab. The following year, every class started having it. So I go to college my first year, go to BC3 my first year. And the lady goes, all right, boot your computer, do this, do that, and everything. And I'm looking at her and I go, I don't even know where the on-off switch is, man. Like, I know nothing. And she's sitting there looking at me like, what is wrong with you? Like, she might as well have said, are you stupid? Because she had to be thinking, like, what is wrong with this? Luckily, I had 4 of my Slippery Rock fellow classmates were in that class. And the one girl says, we weren't ever allowed to use the computer lab. We were the last class to get through there. And this lady felt so bad because we were like 3 weeks behind everybody. We had no idea what to use. And like, computers at first, like, I was like, oh boy, this is horrible. And now it's like, you use a computer, if I need to, it's funny now because I'm like, hey Siri, where's this? Or what's the temperature? Like, you just blurt it out and all of a sudden it's right there for you. So, like, that's the biggest difference.
So you had to play catch up, obviously, in college. And then as you were at FMJ and everything, you look at that kind of transition where I came in, the 2000s, early 2000s, the mid 2000s, 10s, everything went digital. Did you feel like you were behind the 8 ball? And how did you take that?
I honestly felt like I was the, I don't know how to say this right, but I was like the old mule in the room that just, we're going to kick around, and if he doesn't survive, we'll just get rid of him.
Yeah.
And I remember when we went digital there, Dana Balish and I sat there and we took notes. And, the these younger guys were all sitting in there like, ha, 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 this is easy, and him and I were like looking at each other. We crossed our notes. We talked afterwards. Him and I stayed and we worked every night because we wanted to know that dang system better than anybody, because we felt we had to. And, you went from when I first started at FMJ, it was a typewriter. So I'd go in, I would type all the scores that were going to air that night on the scroll. I had to type them up then. And throughout the night, I would keep running up papers with scores on them. Now that's all computerized. And you're like, how's this going to link into this and that? And IT guys, like, I remember when they walked down the first day, they're like, hey, we hired an IT guy. I go, we hired an it? Like, come on. That stupid dad joke of mine. Like, you just got to let it flow. And everybody's looking at him like, no, it's a computer guy. And I'm like, oh, okay.
I love it. Greg Burbick chimes in and says, see, DJ, told you we weren't allowed to use the computer. Now, the difference between you and Greg, and we all love Greg, is that Greg still can't use the computer. Like, he'll send me messages because he's an avid viewer of what you do on Audible Call. So he'll be like, you know what you should do? You should make it. So, and then he'll list off 5 different things that we already do that he just doesn't know how to get to. Every time I turn my phone off, the game goes away. How do we make it so the game doesn't go away? I'm like, don't turn your phone off. Like that's problem number 1. But from a serious note here, Mike, I mean, you've had to roll with the punches a lot.
You do.
You've turned into an ad lib king, obviously on the air, off the air. You guys, what I can't wait to hear a story about it. And you've told me a few of these. So sharpen your pencil and tell us your best story about the Canfield Fair. Now, WFMJ, I don't know if they still do it. They used to, because they used to have a tent at the Canfield Fair. I think they still do.
They do.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
And all the talent gets to go out. And what people don't realize, and I hope I'm not offending anybody. If I do, I apologize. You can see us, but we can't see you, right? You know our name and we don't know yours necessarily. What's troublesome is when people spot you out in the public and they'll say, and I love hearing people's stories. I love them. But for them to be so comfortable around a stranger as I am, does it weird you out or like make you it's happy, right? That they're watching you, but it's kind of like, wait a minute, you're like searching for their name, but you've never met them before in your life.
Right. Well, it is. And this is funny. And I'll never forget, woman, she come in, she was geeked. She's getting pictures with the whole weekend crew. And her husband walks in. He says, she goes to bed every night with you, Mike. And I'm just sitting there like, what's your comeback to that? Like, you're just sitting there like, oh, okay. And he goes, no, seriously, we watch you in bed every Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Like, we do not miss. And I'm laughing, you get those stories. You get the people, like, kids would just shake, like, and it was weird because I'm not that way. And you know me, like, I'm not that rock star guy. I'm not like, I'm a blue collar guy. I pull up my lunch pail. Let's go to work. Let's get it done. I'm not afraid of it. I've worked with some prima donnas. I've worked with some people that had the egos and stuff, but I never got that way because I think it was the way I was raised. I mean, anytime I felt good about myself, it was just a quick call to my dad. Man, that cast was really good tonight. No, you sucked. I mean, he'd flat out just tell me, he's like, you said this instead of this, and you slurred this word here. And then I'd go back and I'd watch that cast and I'd be like, yeah, he's right. So I would work extra hard. And I love my dad, man, but he was my toughest critic. And I'm glad he was. I'm glad he was hard on me.
All right. So what is, everybody looks at, anchoring being like the creme de la creme, right? That's you've arrived. That's not necessarily the case. That's not everybody's. It's a situation where, that's part of your job, but there's the other parts of the job that nobody really knows about. What was your favorite part of what you did every day for 30 years?
My biggest thing was knowing that every day was going to be different, because every game's different. Was stacking the show. What were you going to lead with? And we tried to, and thankfully the Indians in the mid 90s became the heyday, because when I first got there, the Indians barely made the sportscast. They were so bad. But when they became good, it was easier. And it was the same, like, prior to the Browns leaving, they were good. So you knew on a Sunday, 6-11, no matter what, you led with the Browns, unless the Steelers pulled off some miracle play. Then you could flop it. But, and over my time, you could see it changed. When they left and then they came back, you still led with the Browns at 6, but you led with the Steelers at 11 because normally the Browns had gotten beat by 20 or 30, or somebody taking their helmet off and gave the other team a chance to kick a field goal. It's just, but stacking the show, how were you going to do it? And it could change. What you thought at 7 going into 11, at 8 could change, at 9 could change, and then all of a sudden the coach gets fired or something. So, it just, I always like the fact that at any given moment, what you thought was in stone changed. And that's what made it fun for me. Nerve-wracking, stressful, all that stuff built into one, but it made it fun to work.
There's only one guy, I think, at the end of the day that's done more interviews than I have at this point through 5 years, and that's you. You were always out and about. Love seeing you out. And I know that you had some memorable interviews with some of the student athletes of yesteryear. Does any one or two of them stand out to you that you just recall almost instantly when somebody says, what's your favorite interview?
Yeah. I remember one of my first was Corey Stringer. We went up there, just this big behemoth of a man. And when he got drafted by the Vikings, just how grateful and how just, I'm looking at this 6'6", 6'7" giant, have tears in his eyes, and just grateful that he was going to get a chance to play in the NFL. Same with Marlon Jackson, who was drafted from Sharon. He got his opportunity. And then there's funny interviews, like little kid interviews, like, hey, why do you like to play baseball? It's fun. But they say it with like this beautiful, cute, innocent smile. And you remember those. We did Youngstown had a mentally challenged basketball team that made the state finals. That was 3 of my favorite interviews because the joy in those 3 gentlemen's face that they were going to play for a state championship. That's one I remember. And then there's funny ones. Isaac Smolko, perfect interview. I remember, and you could ask Doug Phillips this next time you see him. We go there, National Letter Intent Day. He's going to Penn State, and I fired off a question to him. I says, hey, what did you learn here at Springfield Local that you'll carry with you the rest of your life? And Doug's beaming in the back like, that's a great question, right? Isaac looks at me, just real stone cold face. He goes, nothing.
Oh,
he just said nothing. And like, we're all sitting there and I'm like, are you serious? And he goes, I really can't think of nothing to say right now. I mean, I go, oh, okay. So I made you speechless. And he goes, yeah, I don't know what to say. But at first, it just came wrong. And I remember poor Doug, like he had the biggest smile on his face and it just went to like
fear.
Yeah, like total fear in his face. But Isaac was great. I mean, he was a good kid, love him. And, I caught up with him. He was at a Springfield game last year during the playoffs when we were up there. And just to say hello to him was, cool. And he remembered that. He goes, do you remember when I botched that interview? I'm like, yeah, still remember that.
Still talking about it to this day.
Yeah. But, and along with that comes, I've worked with some people now that, their biggest argument, who's the greatest basketball player, is it LeBron or is it Michael? And I'll go to my grave saying Michael. And this guy goes, well, what do you really know about LeBron? And he says, I'm fortunate, man. I'm one of the few people that actually got to see LeBron James play high school football.
Yep.
And if he had decided that he was going to be a tight end, he probably would have went to Ohio State. His dream team would have been the Cowboys. He was a man among boys in the one time I got to see him. Because he didn't play after his freshman year.
Right.
But I remember, George Jr. came over, played him at YSU, packed house, and they beat him. Wow. They beat him there, and those are things you remember. But I remember, just watching LeBron grow up. But I'll go to my grave arguing that that little kid from North Carolina is better.
Yeah, he's pretty good. He's pretty good.
He did all right.
We got questions coming, all kinds of them. Seth wants to know, Mike, your favorite MLB stadium that you've been to?
Old Yankee Stadium and Wrigley Field are tied right now, and I have to get to Fenway and Dodger Stadium.
What is it about those old stadiums?
You just want to go there for the nostalgia, the mystique. I mean, we went to Old Yankee Stadium. We walked out to Monument Park, Thurman Munson, Babe Ruth, Ty Cobb, all those monuments that were out there just made it neat. And then my wife and I did it right. We went to a day game at Wrigley, and that just made it the best. I think that's the way you have to see a game at Wrigley. So, right now those are my two, but Fenway's on the list, and I think I want to sit on the Monster. We should do that as a field trip.
Let's go. I'm down for it.
Okay.
We'll put it on the YSN credit card.
Okay.
Amo says, what is your favorite sports memory?
Wow.
I dig deep for this one, right?
I do, but it's easy. There's two that stand out, and I'll give you my reasoning. 1972, December 23rd, Raiders Steelers, 13 seconds left, the Immaculate Reception. People are like, my dad had left the room. I was the only one left because they were getting ready for my birthday party. To me, that is still the best birthday gift I ever got, was a miracle play by my team to advance to the next round. And then probably the next one to that is the first time the Penguins won the cup, because all my friends abused me in high school. I had my Pens gear on, all that 91? Stuff. 1991. And I remember ran into a teacher, and he says, "We abused you. We made fun of you." He says, "What did you do when they won?" I says, "As soon as I got off the air, I actually let a tear roll down my face, drove to the airport with 5 of my friends, and we acted like idiots all night and just enjoyed it and watched them walk through with the cup." Because we didn't know if it was ever going to happen again. Yeah. And back then you could get into the airport. So it was crazy. But those two stand out more than anything to me. And I can give you a sad one. Back to 1972 was when my dad looked at me and said Roberto Clemente had died. Oh. I bawled like a baby. And I'm not afraid to admit that. That was my guy, man. That is
this day. Now you told me, and I hope this is for public consumption.
It is
that you only wear Pirates jerseys that have Clemente on the back. Is that true?
Yes. My wife bought me one, and they immediately traded Josh Bell. So I refused to get another one. The only other one I would get would be a Bonds jersey. I would wear a Bonds jersey because to me, I know he's a Giant, but he's always a Pirate in my mind. But Clemente's my guy. I have 3 Clemente jerseys. If you ever see me at a Pittsburgh Pirate game, I will have my Clemente jersey on.
And we saw you in on Facebook, at least, that you guys went to game 6 of the Penguin series against the Rangers, and you had the Lemieux jersey on. What Penguins jerseys do you have?
Well, how long do you have for this? Obviously Lemieux, several of them. I got a couple signed. I have Yager, Malkin, both signed. Crosby, I have 3 signed ones. Wow. I probably have like 8 Crosby jerseys. I even have a Team Canada. Wow. Ulf Samuelsson may be my favorite defenseman ever to play for them. So I have that one. Johan Hedberg, Fleury, Hossa, Kessel. It's countless. And
are these in the closet or are they displayed?
They are in the closet. And it's funny because the kids already got me dead and buried. And I says, hang on. It's already marked in the will who gets what. I says, your sister gets her first dib at the Lemieux or Yager jersey. Because we went to an autograph signing when she was a little girl. She looked him right in the eye and she goes, will you marry me?
Oh, man.
So,
wow.
It's funny. And I didn't pull it out because I didn't have a good feeling about this series, but I have a picture. Whenever I've posted it, they've never lost. It's Iceberg holding her. I happen to know the guy is Iceberg. When she comes home this year, we're going to a Pens game, and we're going to recreate this photo. I'll show it to you the next time I'm around you, or I'll text it to you. But we're going to recreate this photo with her now as an adult.
I can't wait. She's out in San Diego, correct?
San Diego, yeah. That was the other cool thing. With her being out west, now my wife and I have a shot to go because we checked off Petco. We went to the Padres game over Easter with her. So the Angels are 2 hours up the road, and then we're going to make the 5-hour trek to Dodger Stadium. And then I got to wait to see because rumor has it the A's are moving to Las Vegas.
Ooh.
So If not, we'll make a whole weekend up in San Fran and catch an A's in a Giants game.
I've been to San Francisco, and it was at that point, I think it was Pac Bell Park, if I'm not mistaken, or AT&T or whatever it was.
Yeah,
one of the two. And it's very similar, eerily similar to PNC, because the same guy drew it up. So, but it's San Francisco is one of my favorite cities in the world. There's just so much culture there. There's so many things to do, and I'm a huge seafood fan, and it's some of the best seafood you're going to get. But I know you'll enjoy it, because you'll see instantly, Mike. You'll see the connection between PNC and that park. And obviously our guy Barry Bonds played at both parks, so it's a very special place. All right, so with all of that, let's get back to the sports, because I'm going to let you go at 3:45, right? That's the time.
Yeah.
Okay, so all these coaches. I mean, you are one of the most well-respected sports journalists of my time, certainly, and a lot of people in my era. The coaches just never stop about you. They miss you. They've got great stories with you. They had great relationships with you. Is there any one or two particular coaches that you have such a relationship with, or had such a relationship with, that you felt like you were part of their family and they felt like they were part of yours?
Yeah, there absolutely is. Brian Fedeschi, when he was coaching at McDonald and Fitch, and we text, here and there, but like that was one, like our kids were born at the same time. So we knew exactly what each one was going through. And there's times he'd look at me and goes, "You look dead tired." And I go, "So do you?" And he goes, "You didn't sleep last night, did you?" "No, I was up all night. The kids are sick." And, it was my duty when I got home that I had to take over for my wife. And, so that one stood up. Larry Kemp and I go all the way back. He always made fun of my hair. He's like, "Well, you dye your hair." I'm like, "Yeah, I do." I said, "I'd have been gray at 30 because of my kids, that's how it works." But I said, "If the station's paying for it, yeah, we can keep dyeing it blonde. I'm cool with that." And he'd always laugh at me. And I said, "You ought to spray a little bit on yours." And he did one time. He'd come back and he looked at me and goes, "God, I'm never doing that again. It was terrible." So, that Coachy Egley, man, and that's one that one runs deep, because there is text on each other's birthdays. There is, "Hey, I wish you luck for the season," stuff like that. And I remember when their daughter was getting married, his wife posted a massive table of cookies she had made for the wedding. And I said, "Do you need a taste tester? Because, us retired sportscasters know how to eat." And she says, "Tell me what you like and I will mail you dozens." I'm like, "No, that's not what I wanted. I was just being a smart aleck." But the whole Yeagley family, like I know we talk all the time. So those are just a few of them, but there's more. I can add Bob Spade. I can add Cusick. You go in and it's weird, but Don Butchie. I'll give you the greatest story about Don Butchie. 93, as everybody knows, I was in a really bad car wreck. So I'd been out of work for like 2.5 months. I get back, we're doing our football previews. So that night, Pat Saunders tells me, he says, "Hey, just go over to Mooney, get coach. He knows you're coming, blah, blah, blah." I said, "All right." So walk in, and Butchie never stopped for anything. He'd make you wait an hour, 2 hours. It was his time, his practice, everything. He sees the car pull in, and he sees me get out, and all of a sudden I see the whistle blow. He brings the whole team over, and he says, I walk over and I said, "Hey, coach, how you doing?" "Screw me, Mike. How are you doing? I don't care." And I says, "Why are you stopping practice?" He goes, "These kids need to know that you're alive and well." And like, they stood there for the whole interview. And when I left, they gave me a standing ovation. And that's like one that just, I'm leaving there, and Ron Martin, who usually could always make me laugh, we're both just quiet sitting in the car. And he says, "You got tears in your eyes?" I says, "I do, because that is not what I expected. I honestly expected that when we walked in there, it's go time. It's we got to do our job." I did not expect him, of all the coaches, because he carried the most clout with anybody with me. And it was funny because Ron would shoot a lot of the games they played on Saturdays back then. We always had an opening shot of Butchie, and usually it was letting the referees know that he knew more than them and they were wrong and stuff. And the one time he asked me, he says, "Why you always put me on there yelling at the refs?" I go, "Because you're the dean of the coaches in the Valley, man. And when you speak, they listen. And if they were wrong," he goes, "Yeah, coach told me he was wrong last week."
So you and I, we've had a ton of conversation. Those Friday football nights for us naturally are very hectic for what, half the day. And then there's this kind of celebration after, and it's a celebration where everybody here is typically, eating or feeding their face, and we're swapping stories. But you and I, especially this past year, have sat down a lot with each other, even when everybody leaves and when we're having conversations. There's a lot of give and take with us from a standpoint of, you said it earlier in this interview, you're a young man who told your teacher that you were going to live out your dreams, and you've done so. You've checked all the boxes, and there's a lot of that with me, man. I'm living my dream right now. What is left for Mike Ackelson out there on your bucket list that you want to do, whether it's in the sports realm or otherwise?
Just a lot of traveling. I actually owe my wife. I owe her. I mean, we're going to be empty nesters come August when Trev goes to Penn State. So I said, first thing I looked at, I said, I want to know when the whiteout game is. We're going to go. I said, but maybe we'll take that whole weekend. You pick something to do on Sunday, but Saturdays, we're going to go to that whiteout game. And our older son, he's planning on going, and we got friends that are like, we got to go to that whiteout game with you because you're going to be crazy. I said, yeah. I says, I want to do the tailgate. And that's the funny thing. When you've worked in this business, you go to Ohio State, you go to Penn State, or, any big venue like that, you don't really get to enjoy it because you're working, and that's when people say, "Oh, that was awesome. You were at this state championship game," but I didn't get to soak it in the way you did.
Right.
I get to enjoy it afterwards, but I don't get to enjoy it, at that moment. And that was often the same way with, I covered several AFC championship games, 2 Super Bowls, and people were like, "What was it like to be at the Super Bowl?" Dude, it was hectic. I needed to know what I was going to do for 4 hours. Like, I'm taking notes the whole time, and I'm trying not to watch. The second time I was in Dallas, I didn't want to watch the game on Jerry's big TV that just draws your eyes. I want to watch the game on the field. But those are things like, I want to go to some places. I want to go to Notre Dame and watch a football game. I want to go to the Big House. And, there's just places I want to go. I'd love to go see a Florida State game. I want to go down there. I want to go see a Clemson game. But I also want to, if my wife wants to take a week and we're going to go watch musicals in New York, hey, it's her call. We'll go do that.
That a boy. Hey, so I know you got to go. So we're going to let you bounce. Mike, I can't thank you enough. It's been a dream come true working with you, to be able to learn from you, to be able to learn with you, and be along your side through this whole journey, man. You said it best. This is not a situation where there's necessarily any leaders. We're all just on the same team, pushing the same stuff, and we're all doing it for the kids. I can't thank you enough. The Valley can't thank you enough. Thanks for stopping by and spending some time and chopping it up with us.
Oh, absolutely. And, I'm always a phone call away during the off season, but we can make that a little bit more. We'll try to hit this more regularly so we can talk all the time. And, I can't wait to see how the baseball and softball and even the track and field stuff works out over there in the Mahoning Valley.
I love that, man. You're welcome here anytime. You just send me a text and you got an open invite.
All right. When's football start?
Stop it. Stop it. You've been waiting 45 minutes for that one line.
Gotcha.
Thanks, Mikey. We'll see you, buddy.
All right. See you.
Mike Ackelson, the legend. My goodness. He's so much fun to be around. But listen, he said it best. He is a guy that when it's time to go, when it's time to do your job, he does it. It's go time. And I think that, I'll be completely honest. There were times, that we grow here at YSN and we love what we do and we feel we're pretty doggone good at it. And when you do that, just like anything in life, you get a little arrogant, you get a little cocky. Mike was one of those guys when we were going through that phase, and he kind of sat me down and we talked about it, and he said it as only Mike can. And it was, we haven't won anything yet. What did we win? We're still on the 3-yard line and we're heading 97 yards in front of us. And I was absolutely in his corner with that. Some things you just can't fight. And even though we're a local business, we're still a business, right? And he celebrates with us when we win. And on Friday nights, there is no doubt about it. Ladies and gentlemen, you know that we are the people's champ. And that's not arrogance. That's not cockiness. That is a 100% fact. We know because, well, let's face it. You see these sponsors that are popping up. You see the eyes that are on YSN. And it's a lot of hard work. We put in the practice time, we put in the reps, and we put in, when it's game time, it's game time. But we know how to have a good time too. And Mike's been a part of those good times. He'll continue to be a part of those good times. But when he and I spoke, I'll never forget it. I was outside of my house. It was probably June or July, maybe even early August. And I couldn't even get through my pitch to bring him on board about, here's the compensation, here's what we're doing. I don't care about the compensation. I don't care about that stuff. I just want to be a part of this. I want back in. The fire is stoked. He believed in the product. He believed in YSN. He believed in me. He believed in the team that we were assembling. He wanted to be a part of that team. It was almost, and I know we talked about a lot of Pittsburgh stuff because that's what we believe in. We're fans of. It was like we got a veteran quarterback that could, if someone went down, like if I went down and I couldn't do this show, Mike would be sitting in this seat or sitting in his seat and doing the show. And we wouldn't skip a beat. And I would argue he could do it better than I do. I've always been a fan of Mike Ackelson, and I'll always be a fan of Mike Ackelson not because of necessarily who he was on the air, because he was great. He was great. And he mentioned Jack Gerdick's name. Jack Gerdick is a huge reason of where YSN is today. And it's a funny story because Mike told me that story before about Jack telling him everything was going to be digital. Jack Gerdick is the guy at WFMJ, and he'll kill me for telling this story, but he's the guy that told me how impressed he was by what we've created here. And we owe Jack a ton together, Mike and I. And I know that's a fact. But Jack's a very special person in both of our lives. And naturally, I'm just grateful for that. And Mike is a big keystone, for no pun intended, because he's a Pennsylvanian. He's a big keystone with what we're trying to do moving forward. And I would argue with anybody that the day that Mike Ackelson came on our airwaves was the day that there was a lot of validity to what we do. We were just a bunch of kids, right? Bunch of kids with a hobby. And then we bring in one of the best sportscasters of the last 3 decades. And stuff got real. People took notice. We were legit. Mike, I will be forever grateful for you, to you, for you, name it. So let's get to some comments here. Chris Siggy says, such a genuine guy, 100%. And that's the thing. The Mike Ackelson that you saw right there is the same Mike Ackelson that we see on Friday, Saturday nights, whatever you want to say. Again, the best, without a shadow of a doubt. One of the best, most genuine guys that you're ever going to come across. And that's why he fits in well here. For good, for bad, for otherwise, our people are very genuine. We're passionate. We're excited. And that's why Mike is a perfect fit for what we do. It's perfect. And seeing guys like Chris Sigler and Donnie Riccatelli and all these guys who are my generation, maybe a year or two older than I am, maybe a year or two younger. We grew up watching Mike and wanting Mike and Dana to come out and interview us and do our thing and watching them on the news. interview people. Mike always asks great questions, relevant questions. Mike gave me some of the greatest advice ever. Before I interviewed for that job at Channel 21, and then after I didn't get it. He said, take this and let the fire burn inside of you. And ta-da, here it is. We let the fire burn a little too long, I guess. Let's take a quick break. Let's pay some bills. Make sure we can still turn the lights on Monday. And then we'll come back. We'll do the Joe Dickey Electric, What's Your Spark? And then, hey, it's the weekend. Let's get it rolling. Back after this.
It's a new year at Acura of Boardman and Boardman Mitsubishi with huge savings on over 350 fully inspected vehicles. We have cars, trucks, SUVs, minivans, and work vehicles. We don't have it, our team will find it. We aim for 100% credit approval with payments as low as $99 per month. And as always, we'll pay top dollar for your trade. For a great vehicle and a great experience, come see why everyone is stopping by at Acura Boardman and Boardman Mitsubishi.
You're not waiting to see what the world has in store for you. It's more about what you have in store for the world. All you need is the opportunity. All you need are the resources of a large university and the advantages of a personalized academic setting, where you can experience new worlds in the arts and sciences, business, and education, and make them your own. We are where you shape your future. We are Youngstown State University, and proud.
You know, being able to have success on the football field and the basketball court and just every aspect of, my sports career is now documented. One of the greatest things about high school sports is to be able to talk about it for the rest of your life and to look back on the days with my buddies whenever we would have some battles, whether it was with our rival or just another game, and I could go back and look at it and not only myself but my family members, my teammates, and it's something that will last a lifetime. My name is Parker Sherry, and my sports network is your sports network.
It's storm season.
I think we're under the gun for some heavy storms over the next couple of hours.
And Storm Tracker 21 is ready.
This is probably the one we're keeping a closer eye on.
On air.
And locally, we're going to have a lot of eyes on our area.
Online.
All right, let's talk high-risk futurecast and the timing of this weather.
On social media and on our app.
Notice we'll have scattered showers on Thursday.
Stay ready with Storm Tracker 21.
The severe weather threat now through around sunset this evening.
And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the YSN Power Hour. DJ Yoakley with you. Let's get to, I know there was a comment here. Amo checking in, saying, yeah, great point. They used to get interviewed, students and athletes and student athletes used to get interviewed by Mike Ackelson and Dana, and now they want to get interviewed by Ty and Anthony. That's phenomenal. I love it. I'm excited about that. It's a new era. And again, I'm not going to not brag about YSN because listen, this is my bundle of joy. This is a lot of our bundles of joy. And there's a reason, again, as I always say, and not to quote myself, it's your sports network. YSN is yours. So we've had people that say, hey, we'd love for you to interview my kid. Let's go. No time like the present, right? Let's giddy up on it. So that said, let's get rid of the comment so what we can pay the bills with our friends over at Joe Dickey. Let's bring you the Joe Dickey Electric. What's Your Spark? It's a Joe Dickey Electric. What's Your Spark? Presented by our friends over in North Lima, led by the one and only Mr. Eric Carlson, which, again, you want to talk about high character people. Eric Carlson, his crew over at Joe Dickey, they're as good as it gets. I mean, I've seen the work that they do. I stand by the work they do. And by golly, if we ever have work that needs done with electricity, those guys are going to be the one to do it because they're just the best there is. They're like Bret Hart, the best there is, the best there was, and the best there ever will be, right? Eric Carlson, one of the stewards of our community here in the Mahoning Valley, one of the best people you'll ever know, and stands up on and for his business so well. So if you have any electric work, whether it be residential, commercial, anything electrical, head over to dickieelectric.com and make sure you give them a buzz. Tell them why I sent you. All right, so let's get to today's Spark. And I mean, today's Spark, do I go anywhere else but Mike Ackelson? I mean, a guy that makes time, 45 minutes, which is a long time for an interview. But we could have easily went on another 4 hours. And trust me, we have. It's a situation where Mike's been in East Palestine plenty of nights, 2 a.m. plus, with us just chopping it up. And if he meant what he said, and typically he's never steered me wrong, ladies and gentlemen, Mike Ackelson will be a regular part of this program, and we'll make sure that we get some of those stories out. There's nothing ever terrible. Like, they're not bad stories. But when you work in the news industry and the sports industry, and it's your job to know the business and people's business, people come to you with some business. And lucky for me, and I tell these people all the time, because we get a ton. Like, I feel bad sometimes because we get so many people telling us their business, other people's business, as long as it relates to sports. Maybe sometimes when it doesn't relate to sports, I feel awful because they know they're safe around YSN people. They know they're safe around me because we don't report that stuff. We don't report, firings or suspensions or anything like that. So when we get this information, I'm just kind of like, oh man, like, please don't tell me. Like, we don't go anywhere with it, but it's like being Adam Schefter without having to or wanting to go out on Twitter and be breaking news. I've got a lot of respect for those people when it's done tactfully and tastefully, but there's people out there that want to do the breaking news thing. And sometimes, and more than once, they get it wrong, or they bite off more than they can chew, or they get some of the story right and some of the story wrong. Some of it's rumor, some of it's not. See, I got myself stirred up like that. I made it through the entire show without that, so we're getting better. But yeah, like Mike's got as many, if not triple, the amount of stories that I have about that. And just when you pick people in life to follow and to call role models and people that you want to be like, you can't go wrong with a guy like Mike Ackelson. So, Mike, we appreciate you stopping by the show and again, chopping it up with us for a little bit and getting it done. And I know you had plans and you catered around us, and I thank you so much. It's something we've wanted to do for a long time. And maybe, who knows, maybe Mike turns up on a baseball game or two this summer at Ysn Park. Who knows? Maybe he'll join me at the fields at the Field of Dreams in Boardman, and I'll treat him to dinner. So make sure you, ladies and gentlemen, again, lots of stuff going on this weekend. Next week on YSN is awards week for spring sports. So you're not going to want to miss that. We've got a couple of more announcements as well as it goes to this summer. And then we will make official tonight, we will make it official that the YSN All-Star Games are going to be in conjunction with Project MKC, which is something I believe in so much with what my wife and I do in our private lives. We love kids. We love children. We think every child should have the same opportunities as the next, at least in the early going, to accomplish their dreams and just be happy, have joy in their lives and joy in their heart. So those are the same beliefs that the people over at Project MKC have. We're excited to partner up with them for our All-Star Games. All the, at least right now, as we're stirring it up, all of the prices, like the gate, will go to Project MKC. We're working on the opportunities for like diaper drives and things like that to help out area kids. We're going to look towards, we're going to feel the situation out with the formula. And I don't know if they're allowed to do that stuff or not. We have a lot of stuff that we're trying to work through. So I don't want to get too far ahead of the cart ahead of the horse here. So if you've got ideas and stuff that we can help out with Project MKC, absolutely, we will. We'd be happy to hear from you and get you engaged. We're going to be looking for volunteers for that as well. So if you'd like to volunteer, get yourself a free YSN T-shirt and maybe a couple other things, exciting things from those games. Reach out to us on social, and we'll go from there. I hope you guys have a good weekend. Thanks for tuning in on the Ysn Power Hour. It's always a pleasure to have your attention for the 60 minutes a day, and we think it's a lot of fun. So, again, thank you for all the support out there. Couldn't do it without you. And again, it's your sports network. Make sure you keep it that way. Have a great weekend. Enjoy the next 48 hours, and we'll see you on Monday.
YSN thanks you for watching this presentation of Your Sports Network. For stories,